Welcome back. Well, President Obama applauded the work of the Deficit Commission today, saying they have highlighted the magnitude of the debt challenge. But the 11-7 vote in favor of their recommendations fell shy, 3 short of the 14 needed for congressional action. One of those no votes was cast by our next guest. He's Andy Stern. He's former president of the Service Employees International Union, and he joins us from Washington. So, Andy, why did you vote no?
I voted no after saying that I wanted to make the same $4 trillion in savings. But our country has 2 deficits. One is a fiscal deficit, but the other, as we saw by the job figures today, is an investment deficit. No family who had a child going to college would not invest in their future. No business that had old technology would not invest in new equipment. And our country can't simply cut our way out of this. We need investment as well. And I don't think the report did enough along those lines. And I think that's a major consideration for the future.
So, Andy, you have your own plan here. Are you also looking to cut things but just make different cuts, or are you looking to invest things and counting on the supply side?
Well, first of all, no, I'm not counting on the supply side. I made cuts equal to about 50% of the $4 trillion. I followed pretty much the Bowles-Simpson plan for the tax expenditures. And what I did that was a little bit different is, just like the Transportation Trust Fund, I found a designated source of revenues to be able to build an investment fund for America. So my plan actually pretty much mirrors Bowles-Simpson, with one big difference, which is that. And the second big difference is that Bowles and Simpson expect individuals and small businesses to pay their fair share of the deficit, but there's actually no income coming from large C corporations. And I don't think that's shared sacrifice, and I think that needs to be fixed as well.
Andy, what kind of drives me crazy, I'm a taxpayer, I'm worried about this deficit, I'm worried about the deficit my daughter's going to have to pay off. This was just a first step, something to give to Congress to kind of play with. So why couldn't we even get through that process? To me, that is just staggering.
Well, I actually think we are going to get there. I don't know if you saw, but 12 Democratic senators today signed a letter asking the Senate to take it up. There was no magic in 14. We had a majority, 11 members of the commission. It was 60%. I said clearly I want this put to a vote. I mean, that is not a question anymore. I think the question is, will the leaders of Congress, Harry Reid and John Boehner, take a plan that's been approved by 60% of the people, that the rest of the commissioners want a vote on, and give that vote?
But if the commission can't even agree, Neil Grossman, he's a guest with Matt and myself, another hedge fund guys I talked to yesterday, there's, if the commission can't even agree, how are we going to get Congress, members of Congress, to agree on anything?
Well, I mean, I think that's the challenge that we're going to see. The commission did agree. It had a majority vote. It got 60%, which would pass both houses of Congress if that was able to be done. So I think there's a plan that can pass. I think it's going to be amended and somewhat changed. I think the question is, let's start voting. Vote on Bowles-Simpson. Vote on Rivlin Domenici. Vote on my plan. Vote on the president's plan. I hope he's going to come to the State of the Union address with his own plan to really get this thing into full gear.
The problem, Andy, is the amendment and change part. I mean, I think it seems like a lot of people we speak to are worried that these kind of plans will get watered down and watered down and watered down until it's cutting not $4 trillion or your 50% of $4 trillion, but maybe 50% of that. And eventually, we're still running up a deficit of $7 trillion over that time period, and coming up to, what's that, $23 trillion in debt. I mean, it just doesn't seem to stop.
Well, I think then the first thing that the Senate and the House should do is pass one of the recommendations of Bowles-Simpson's as a fail-safe, which begins a time clock that says if these cuts are not made by a certain time, we're just going to start across-the-board cuts, both in tax expenditures and spending. Let that be the first thing that the Congress does, and let's get the clock ticking and force the resolution. But I think we are at a time when you're right. America can't afford to have additional debt. We need a fiscal plan that goes into the future. It requires sort of discipline in our fiscal side and investment as well, and I think we can get it done. I'm not at all pessimistic given what the commission did.
Well, and what I find remarkable, Andy, is that most people agree something has got to be done. We can't continue on this path. But I mean, I guess when I break it down, I mean, the political will, Matt and I ask this constantly, is there any political will, though, to actually do this when all is said and done?
I think 10 months ago you would have never suspected that 15 Democratic senators, 12 and plus 3 on the commission would actually be for making change. I think there's been a sea change. The question now is not if we're going to do something, but what we're going to do. And I think that's a tremendous step forward. And now I think the challenge is to the President of the United States to lay out his plan in the State of the Union, and then let's get started.
Andy, let me ask you about, the possibility of austerity while also stimulating growth. Is that even in the cards here? A lot of the smartest economists we talk to say you can't ignore the supply side, even though everyone in Washington is talking about demand all the time. Is there a way to stimulate growth and still cut this deficit down?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is, but I think you have to pay for it. I mean, I don't think this is about simply going into deficit spending. I think there are a number of different ways that can either be done up front or along the way Alice Rivlin talked about it in terms of, Social Security payroll tax. I think there is a way to do it, but it's going to have to be thoughtful. It's going to have to be directed. It's going to have to be things like, we saw a little bit with the work we did on the unemployment insurance and the tax plan, but I think we need to do both. But it needs to be done with a plan that guarantees at the end of the day that we get this deficit down to reasonable levels that doesn't put our future of a fiscal economy in stake.
Because I'll say, Andy, you talk to a lot of market watchers. I mean, they want to see something done. This is one of those uncertainties that's overhanging the market, if you will. So give me an idea over the next 6 to 12 months, what do you think really gets done here?
I think, first of all, what you're going to see is when the debt ceiling comes up, there are going to be demands made, and I hope they're made, to set a ceiling on revenue and expenditures in the long run that makes the kind of changes we need to do. And if I had my way, then I think you would see a process that started with some kind of penalties if we didn't make decisions that would go forward. I think we're going to see something about budget process. There was complete agreement that we need to find a way when the Congress makes a budget, it doesn't continue to keep spending more than it already agreed to pay. I think we're going to see the chance for biennial budgeting, which I think would bring some sobering responsibility to this whole process. I think we're going to see a way to have sequestration or caps or something that are enforceable. So I think you're about to see an era of fiscal responsibility. I know it seems very hard when you're in Washington, D.C. to believe it, but I think this commission ended the day where the era of fiscal denial about the deficit is really over, as Erskine Bowles says.
And just 20 seconds left here. Let me get your take on taxes. The commission wanted to kick out some deductions, child tax credit, mortgage interest. What do you think about taxes? What does that make sense to you? They lower the rates.
Yeah, I think tax expenditures, tax earmarks, whatever you want to call them, we need to lower the rates. We need to make which decisions we want to keep in terms of expenditures and how we're going to pay for them. But this tax system is rigged against middle-class people, and we need to make those changes. And I think Simpson goes in the right direction on the tax expenditure.
Hey, Andy, great to have you on, and we definitely would like to have you back here on Street Smart as this move hopefully progresses along. Andy Stern, thank you so much, joining us there from Washington.